Insurance plans are accepted and they verify your benefits for free. Call 1-800-WESTMED today for your free consultation.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The UCLA women's basketball team had a historic night Monday in the WNBA draft. 5 UCLA players were selected in the first round. No school in the 30-year history of the WNBA draft had that many players chosen in the first round. UConn had the previous high for first-round picks with 4 players selected in 2002. UCLA is also the first school to have 6 players overall selected in the same WNBA draft. Charlize Leger-Walker was a second-round pick of the Connecticut Sun. The record night for the UCLA women's basketball program comes 8 days after winning their first national championship. UCLA's first-round picks: Lauren Betts taken at number 4 by the Washington Mystics, Gabriela Jaquez at number 5 to the Chicago Sky, Kiki Rice at number 6 to the expansion Toronto Tempo, Angela Dukalik at number 9 to Washington, and Gianna Neekins at number 15 to Connecticut. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
When the story gets twisted, who's going to tell the truth? When they cut the microphones, who's still talking? When history gets rewritten, who remembers what really happened? We do. KBLA Talk 1580. Black media isn't just important right now, it's essential. Because when mainstream outlets move on, we stay. When the headlines ignore our communities, we don't. When decisions are being made that affect black lives in our schools, our neighborhoods, our economy, KBLA is in the room. This is more than radio. This is a lifeline, a record, a rallying cry. Black stories, black voices, black power.
The heat is on.
On the air and in the culture. KBLA Talk 1580. Stay connected. Stay informed. Stay loud.
Stand up!
KBLA Talk 1580. No, Dr. Gerald Horn is not on. That's usually what we're going to when we hear that song, but it's just as appropriate. We are being joined by an associate attorney with Human Rights First. She's working with asylum seekers and has a bird's eye view of what immigration enforcement looks like right now for families of color. Attorney Mahdavi Narayanan, welcome.
Thank you, Dominique. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. Tell me, let's start with what Human Rights First does, what you all focus on.
Sure. Human Rights First, we provide legal representation for asylum seekers, as well as strategic litigation to challenge some unlawful immigration policies. We also work on the advocacy side, documenting abuses and pushing the government for policy reform. We do this also via mobilizing pro bono lawyers and partners across the U.S.
So that's a busy job right about now. It's a very busy job right about now. I want to, so you said something that kind of jumped out, because a lot of times when we hear coverage of immigration and the enforcement that's happening, this sort of enforcement, it's a perceived surge that's happening right now. We think of that as being on the legal side and the undocumented folks as being on the illegal side. At least that's how it's often presented in the media. But you said unlawful immigration actions. Can you give me a sense of what is happening now that is illegal in your view?
Sure. This increase in enforcement, you're completely right that it's being presented as a black and white picture of illegal versus not illegal. But what we're seeing is that it's not so black and white. I have clients myself who have applied for immigration status, are eligible, arguably, for immigration status to be able to stay in the United States. But they're still being rounded up in enforcement and placed in immigration detention and presented to the general public as here illegally, although they do have eligibility for relief and are then forced to fight for that eligibility from inside immigration detention.
Wow. So, and I try to point this out sometimes too in our conversations, because I don't think most of us are that in the weeds. If many of us, this majority of the folks that listen to this station are Black Americans. So far, we're citizens. We don't know what's going to happen with the 14th Amendment, but so far, we're citizens of this country. You don't really think about it that much, so people may not understand the difference between someone who's undocumented because they just came across the border looking for work, or someone who actually presented themselves according to the rules of the United States to get asylum or refugee status, somebody who was just, their parents came in a long time ago on a visa that they overstayed, or somebody snuck in and then they were born here, those mixed kind of status families. We don't really track that stuff. So explain what you're referencing when you say people that have some kind of legit status to be here, but now they're trying to follow this process and get their paperwork all in a row from inside of detention.
Mm-hmm. So at Human Rights First, we're working to protect those who are here to seek asylum. Seeking asylum is a human right. It's a right that's protected under U.S. immigration law. And so when I'm talking about my clients, I'm talking about folks who perhaps have crossed the border but have done that in an effort to exercise their right to seek asylum, fleeing really horrific conditions in their countries of origin, and facing really dire consequences if they're sent back. Now, when you cross the border and you don't have documents that allow you to do so, you're placed in what's called removal proceedings and you're sent to immigration court. And it's there that you can explain that you have arrived at the United States in order to ask for asylum. And that is a legal process in which you can do that. And you can be granted asylum, which can lead to becoming a legal permanent resident, eventually potentially becoming a citizen of the United States. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of fighting your case. There's other types of eligibility, other types of visas you could be eligible for, but in terms of the work that we do, largely we're representing asylum seekers. And so this process, because there's such a huge backlog in immigration courts and asylum offices, folks are often in this process of seeking asylum, going to immigration court for years on end. And what we're seeing is folks who are in the middle of that process suddenly are stopped and arrested and accused of being here illegally, and then fast-tracked towards deportation. And suddenly they're faced with the situation where they're in an immigration detention center, isolated, facing all sorts of issues, and forced to convince an immigration judge that they are eligible for asylum within that environment, which is extremely difficult to do.
Okay, just to be clear, there is no other way to seek asylum, right? I mean, because we always hear this, well, we want the people who do it the right way, not the people that sneak in. We want the people that do it the right way. But my understanding is that the right way, if you're fleeing, say, Haiti or, say, El Salvador, is to present yourself at the border and say, I'm here for seeking asylum.
That's correct. There's many policies over the past several administrations, in fact, that have tried to block that right at the border. But again and again, we insist that this is the right way to do it. There is a right to seek asylum at the border. There are ways, for example, to come in as a refugee where you're asking for asylum from abroad, but that's a completely different system, which unfortunately has also been eroded by the current administration.
Which also sounds sort of perilous depending on where you're coming from.
Definitely.
So when I read these stories, which I've been noting lately, that the Trump administration is firing or eliminating these judges, these immigration judges, I don't get it, because for years, really decades, I've heard we don't have enough immigration judges. That's why we have this huge backlog of cases. So what am I to make of that?
Immigration judges have quite a bit of discretion in a grant of asylum or similar types of protection allow for the discretion of the judge. And so a lot of it depends on a particular judge's demeanor or their willingness to hear out the non-citizen versus sort of blindly accepting the government's motions or the government's request to fast-track deportation in some cases. And so what we're seeing is an elimination of judges who are not necessarily following the current administration's priorities to fast-track deportation. So some of the judges who were fired are judges that I've appeared before, and I've seen them treat my clients with great levels of compassion and humanity. Oftentimes, folks who are in immigration court without lawyers, it's the judge's responsibility to help guide them through their removal proceedings and any applications that they've made. But what we're seeing is that judges who are doing that, who are showing that compassion, who are, in fact, in some cases, just doing their job, are being removed from their posts, which in turn creates a lot of pressure on judges who are still there to not do similar practices and to sort of blindly succumb to the political pressure and allow and grant the government's efforts to fast-track deportation.
Right, so they act as sort of examples. What I'm reading in Reuters here is that 113 immigration judges have been fired since January of last year, according to their union, without due process cause or explanation. And as you said, they're saying that they're going against judges who rule in favor of the asylum seeker and against the government. And the most recent is 2 judges who ruled against deporting pro-Palestinian students among 6 that were dismissed over in Easter weekend. 2 ruled against the Trump administration, who was trying to deport pro-Palestinian university students. So clearly there's a political agenda there. Sounds illegal. I don't know. We're going to continue this conversation. If you have questions or comments, please join us at 800-920-1580 or hop in YouTube, where I'm still streaming at KBLA 1580. Attorney Mahdavi Narayanan is our guest, and we'll keep it moving when we continue on KBLA Talk 1580.
Thanks for starting your morning off with a voice that speaks truth to power and the powerless, getting to the heart of what matters most in our community. This is where authentic conversation meets real action. From breaking news and politics to culture and community solutions, this is where you hear perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. This is where we come together, get informed, and make change happen. You're inside First Things First with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Good morning, sunshine. You make my day.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a laugh.
You know, 5 years goes fast when you're doing something you love. 5 years of being right there with you, in your car, in your kitchen, at work, in your earbuds. And we don't take that for granted, not for a second. When it came time to celebrate our 5th anniversary, we knew it had to mean something. And we're celebrating on the most fitting day there is, Juneteenth. We're still putting the finishing touches on something really special. And before we tell the world, we want to tell you first. Once we announce this event publicly, we expect that seats are going to go fast, really fast. So, go to our website right now at KBLA1580.com and sign up to make sure you're the very first to hear what we've got planned. Before we go public with all the details, you've been riding with us. It's only right you're first to know. KBLA1580.com. We'll see you on Juneteenth for our 5th anniversary banger. Banger, banger, banger.
It's game day. Are your moderate to severe Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keeping you from the action? Skyrizi, risankizumab Riza, could help you get back to the game. Skyrizi is proven to help people feel significant symptom relief, achieve remission, and visibly improve damage of the intestinal lining. Skyrizi is a prescription injection medicine for adults. Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines. Liver problems leading to hospitalization may occur when treated for Crohn's or ulcerative colitis.
Control is everything to me.
Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 prescribed biologic in Crohn's and ulcerative colitis combined. Learn more at skyrizi.com or 1-866-SKYRIZI.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, host of The Voice of Reason, weeknights at 7 p.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580, with a personal invitation for you to join me and Insight.me as we present The Healing Box, live at Inglewood's world-famous Miracle Theater, Saturday evening, May 23rd at 7 p.m. Look, I understand your attachment style has been running your life like a rogue algorithm, and nobody has had the courage to press pause. Until now, Dr. Bakoya McCall and yours truly are curating a night where clinicians, spiritualists, and an all-star panel of Black woman healers like Dr. Shalonda Sunshine Crawford, Dr. Jashana Johnson, and spiritualist Precious McGill will join some amazing spoken word artists and the legendary comedian Louis Dix to diagnose, disrupt, and heal your relational wreckage in real time. Listen, bring your trauma. As a matter of fact, bring your baby mama. No, bring your testimony. And if you're still texting your ex at 2 a.m., baby, you're not just invited, you're the target demo. Tickets are moving fast, so grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before your dating history gets flagged as a pre-existing condition. That's themiracleinglewood.com. We'll see you there Saturday, May 23rd at 7 p.m.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DePrima on First Things First.
Conversation does continue, and I'm glad you're part of it. You're welcome to call us anytime at 800-920-1580, but the final hour of the show, we're going robust and chopping up some of these national headlines and freestyling on these phones. I am excited to be talking with our current guest. She's a graduate of Harvard University. She worked also as an associate attorney in the Black Immigrant and Refugee Equity Project, and now works with as an international human rights lawyer, working with refugees along in the organization Human Rights First. So we're talking about these immigration attorneys and the judges and how these cases move or don't move. Of course, we don't necessarily know the ins and outs of it, but for years I was telling you, I'm always hearing we don't have enough immigration judges. That's why these cases back up. Now this current administration has an agenda of getting as many people as possible deported, or at least into detention, because that's what he ran on. That's what the president ran on. I think also for other reasons, which we may or may not have time to delve into. But Attorney Narayanan, on the one hand, we talked about judges who don't rule in favor of the administration being dismissed, 113 of them over the past year and some change. But on the other side of this coin, we see the appointment by the Trump administration of military lawyers and other kinds of attorneys to sit in these positions as immigration judges who don't have the training or experience in that particular aspect of law. What impact is that having?
It's definitely harming asylum seekers. Immigration law is complex, and it's not easy to catch on in a couple of weeks, especially as a judge who is making decisions that impact the rest of people's lives and impact whether families are able to stay together or not. And so this appointment of military judges, and we've seen that because of that, many people's cases have been set forward, and suddenly attorneys are having to prepare to go in front of these judges within a matter of a few weeks. It's really harmful and risks sending people back to places where they risk real harm and persecution.
And death, possible death. I mean, that's always on the table. So let's look at, we'll have more time to talk about this after news, traffic, and sports. But let's start to look at how much of an issue Black migrants are. I think that as African Americans, we kind of tend to skip over this. But yet we know from, at least I know, because I track, the changing policies around visas and immigration and refugee status, that it seems the first countries targeted for exclusion from our country are Black countries, whether they be in Africa, whether they be in the Caribbean, wherever they might be.
Definitely. If you look at the most recent travel bans in the second administration, you'll see that the vast majority of countries listed on the travel ban are countries that have Black majority populations. We've seen for years that there is increased skepticism in immigration courts or at the border of Black migrants, which results usually in keeping them in detention even before this enforcement priority of this administration, keeping Black migrants in detention once they enter the United States, and setting much higher rates of bond if they are to be released that have to be paid. And so the issues that Black migrants face and the discrimination that they face both at a systematic level and sort of at interpersonal level in their interactions with immigration authorities is definitely a relevant and ongoing issue.
I mean, my perception is, and views and opinions expressed on First Things First, especially by me, are not necessarily those of Attorney Narayanan, is that my impression is that our immigration system has been racist, racially biased my whole lifetime, right? As long as I've been keeping track, before my whole lifetime. We can go all the way back, Chinese Exclusion Act. And if you look at the racial hierarchy of our country, obviously, ever since they stopped kidnapping us and bringing us here, it appears that our immigration system has been trying to keep us out. That said, are you seeing, and I don't know if you agree with that or you don't, but does it seem like it's getting more egregious for Black asylum seekers?
I think under this current administration, the clampdown on enforcement and the discretion given to ICE officers on the street or CBP officers at the border means that necessarily Black migrants are going to be impacted at a higher rate. These policies are racist. It's been well documented, the disproportionate impacts on Black migrants, such as policies where you have to remain in Mexico, or policies where you have to perhaps register on an app that has Spanish and other languages available, but not necessarily languages that African migrants can speak. And so definitely both on a systematic and an interpersonal level, I think increasing enforcement necessarily means that the burden is going to be higher on Black migrants.
And what are the reasons that working with Black refugees, what are the kinds of reasons that you find that folks are trying to come here?
Many of the asylum seekers that I work with coming from Africa or from the Caribbean are fleeing a wide range of violence, but oftentimes political violence, standing up for democracy. They are human rights defenders in their own countries. Oftentimes they are fleeing violence based on their sexual orientation. They are LGBTQ, or they are allies of LGBTQ folks or activists in their countries and have faced sometimes just horrific stories of torture because of that. In addition, there's a lot of ethnicity and nationality-based discrimination as well. For example, if you look at the conflict in Sudan, there is targeting and a clear target of Masalit and other supposedly African tribes versus Arab tribes. And so there's a wide range of reasons, but many are very strong cases under U.S. asylum law, but unfortunately in this current administration are just not given the chance to be able to present that strong case and get that grant of asylum, even though they should be eligible for it.
We're talking with attorney Mahdavi Narayanan, and we will continue this conversation after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. President Trump is promoting his no tax on tips law by having McDonald's delivered to the Oval Office. The law impacts federal income taxes for people working in jobs that are traditionally received tips. It allows some workers to deduct certain amounts of qualified tips per year from 2025 through 2028.
The no tax on tips is something special, right?
It's very special.
And that's the one that really pertains to you more than anything else?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Fantastic.
Georgia TSA workers don't have to worry about losing their utilities at home while the partial government shutdown continues. The Georgia Public Service Commission approved an order that prevents employees from having their utility services disconnected despite any non-payment. And Michigan marijuana sales rose sharply in March, topping $255 million for the month. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
If you need to lose 50 pounds or more and diets haven't worked, you're not alone. West Medical offers physician-guided weight loss consultations to help you understand your options. Most PPO insurance plans are accepted and they verify your benefits for free. Call 1-800-WESTMED today for your free consultation.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The UCLA women's basketball team had a historic night Monday in the WNBA draft. 5 UCLA players were selected in the first round. No school in the 30-year history of the WNBA draft had that many players chosen in the first round. UConn had the previous high for first-round picks with 4 players selected in 2002. UCLA is also the first school to have 6 players overall selected in the same WNBA draft. Charlize Leger-Walker was a second-round pick of the Connecticut Sun. The record night for the UCLA women's basketball program comes 8 days after winning their first national championship. UCLA's first-round picks: Lauren Betts taken at number 4 by the Washington Mystics, Gabriela Jaquez at number 5 to the Chicago Sky, Kiki Rice at number 6 to the expansion Toronto Tempo, Angela Dukalik at number 9 to Washington, and Gianna Neekins at number 15 to Connecticut. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. The joint will be jumping. Ebony Repertory Theater, in association with Fig Street Films, brings you one of the most beloved musicals of all time. Tony Award winner, Ain't Misbehavin'. The soulful, swinging celebration of the music of Fats Waller. From the rollicking to the romantic, this show is pure magic, full of the songs that defined an era and the voices that'll make you forget everything else for a night. Foot-stomping, heart-stirring, unforgettable. Don't miss Ain't Misbehavin' at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center, starring Lettucey, directed by Ren T. Brown. This is the night out you've been waiting for. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Grab yours now at ebonyrep.org or call the box office today at 323-964-9766. Ebony Repertory Theater, bringing the culture, keeping the legacy alive.
Ain't Misbehavin' runs May 21st through June 8th at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center. Get your tickets now.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is connecting you with services and solutions. Domestic violence and family violence is when someone in an intimate or family relationship tries to gain or maintain power and control over another through a wide range of abusive behaviors. Every single act may amount to abuse. Abuse can take on various forms: psychological and emotional, physical and economic, and sexual abuse. The Genesee Center Incorporated is a nationally recognized nonprofit domestic violence prevention and intervention organization, housing women and children from 30 days up to 2 years through emergency and transitional shelters. The Genesee Center also provides support services like mental health counseling, life skills classes, computer training, job referrals, after-school programs for children, field trips, tutoring, and comprehensive direct legal services. If you need help or you'd like to donate or volunteer, call the Genesee Hotline, 1-800-479-7328. That's 1-800-479-7328, or visit genesee.org. Everyone has the right to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Can we just talk?
You've heard me say it before, how we talk to one another matters. Earlier this year, we launched our first cohort, and I'm grateful to those who leaned in early and helped to shape the work. Now I'm inviting you to join me for a new live seminar, The Practice of Dialogue, Becoming a More Effective Communicator. This is a small group experience designed to help you strengthen how you communicate in your work, your relationships, and your everyday life. Space is limited to keep the experience personal and interactive. So if you're ready to take your communication to the next level, now is the time to focus on the skills that make conversations meaningful. The new 4-week cohort begins Monday, May 4th, and there's a nice discount for early bird registrants. Visit TavishTalks.com to learn more and reserve your place today. That's TavishTalks.com, because better conversations don't just happen, we practice them.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
And I'm so appreciative that you're here. Attorney Mahdavi Narayanan is my guest. She is working with migrants, has spent part of her career, good part of her career, focusing on the fate of black migrants, and is joining us today to talk about just that, along with her work as an associate attorney for human rights first. I want to talk about TPS a little bit. It's confusing for folks, temporary protected status, which is, I think, something that's been around only maybe 30 plus years, where the conditions in a country could cause a group of folks to have a temporary status, allowing them to remain in this country while they're to live and work in this country while their applications to become refugees here are reviewed. Is that correct, or how would you characterize TPS?
That's correct. I mean, TPS was definitely an important tool for those coming from countries where the situation was especially dire, and it would be especially dangerous for anybody to return there. And unfortunately, that protection has been eroded dramatically over the past year.
Yeah, when you say eroded, I mean, the president has kind of summarily said, or the president has had his folks that work under him to say that we are just, in DHS, we're just taking this away. A federal judge blocked the Trump administration from ending this TPS, or temporary deportation protection, for thousands of Ethiopians this week, I believe, last week actually, and that's a ruling by a judge that would keep thousands of Ethiopians in the program, but it's going to end up being challenged further by the Trump administration, right?
Yes, that's correct. And we've seen this for multiple nationalities. One of the first and most important being the Haitian TPS, which also was the blocking that, the ending that TPS, was challenged in court and is still going through that process, but creates a lot of uncertainty and fear for communities that depend on that TPS status to maintain their employment while their other applications are pending.
Right. And again, these two are primarily black black countries. Ethiopia I've been to, Haiti have not been to, but they're mostly black folks. And the excuse that one of the excuses that then DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said was that we're seeing this flood of Haitian immigrants who are coming because of TPS status, but they make these allegations with no evidence, no data to back it up. They just say such as this, and now we've seen some internal memos coming out showing that they know they're not telling the truth. They're basically just trying to paint a picture to justify blocking the status of Haitians and Ethiopians.
Definitely, we're seeing this approach from all sides, from any angle that DHS can, to attack different types of statuses that people who are just here to seek protection for their own lives can benefit from. This is actually also there for many other countries in Africa as well. For example, the TPS for Cameroon was ended, claiming that the situation in Cameroon has has ameliorated, that it's fine now and it's safe to go back there, when if you actually look at the country conditions, there's still an ongoing war, there's still an ongoing conflict. And so definitely some of the reasoning behind this at best is unclear and may have less friendly motives.
I mean, it's for me, it's stunning that on one side of your mouth you can call them ish-hole countries, and on the other side of your mouth you can say everything's fine. Everything's fine. Go on back to Haiti. But we know, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that everything is not fine in Haiti. And in fact, part of the reason it's not fine is because of our meddling. So, I mean, it's just it's kind of stunning. Let's talk a little bit about what this looks like for a family or an individual coming to this country. What happens if, okay, we've rejected your TPS status, or we've decided that you're eligible for deportation, even though you came through our established system to seek refugee or asylum in the United States, asylum status here?
TPS or what would seem like eligibility for TPS based on someone's nationality and the time that they arrived in the United States could protect them if they're in a fast track for deportation at the border, or if they're in immigration detention. Oftentimes a TPS application could help someone get out of detention and spend more time to work on their asylum application, which is much more involved and definitely requires more evidence gathering and talking to a legal representative. But what I've seen personally, in fact, and very sadly, is people who are deported who would have been eligible for TPS because they are screened oftentimes in a really unfair screening interview and determined that they don't have a legitimate claim for protection, or just not given reasons and just say that, well, you don't have a valid reason to be here, you don't have a valid request for protection, and immediately deported. And so since January of 2025, I've met multiple detainees where they're there one day and unfortunately the next they're gone. And had they been able to apply for TPS or maintain that or show that proof of TPS application in previous administrations, they probably would have been released from detention and been able to pursue an application for asylum.
Is there any individual or family story that you can share that particularly stood out as an example of what Black migrants in particular have to deal with?
Sure. I have one client who actually came in 2024, arrived in the United States. And at that time, there was the rule called the Circumvention of Lawful Pathways rule. It was basically an asylum ban that said that you needed to stay in Mexico and apply on an app and wait for an appointment to come in to request asylum. Now, we in our own reporting have documented multiple issues with this application, but the first and most important being that it's not even available in the language that this person spoke, and they didn't have a working phone to be able to do it. So they came in, and this person was tortured. Their shop was burnt down, and they were kidnapped and beaten brutally in their country because they were an LGBTQ advocate. And unfortunately, because of this rule, they weren't eligible for asylum, but were able to prove that it would be very dangerous for them to go back. So they got a lesser sort of protection that allowed them to stay in the U.S., but not necessarily be released. Unfortunately, this meant that he was in immigration detention for more than 2 years, a full year after he had proven to the immigration judge that it would be dangerous for him to go back, because the Trump administration told him that, well, we can't send you back to your country, but we're going to try to find other countries to send you back to. And so this effort to send people to third countries has been so detrimental. And this client story really is an unfortunate example of that. Eventually, after more than 2 years, we were able to get him released, but he lost his father while he was in detention, had serious ongoing medical issues because of the time that he spent there, all as a result of these harmful policies, the issues he had in detention facing with language barriers and not having the money to call home, to call lawyers. It's a sad story, but one that really demonstrates the multiple layers of obstacles that Black asylum seekers face in the United States.
And I mean, one of the things that I also hear conversation about, although it seems to be less prevalent now because I think of the really just aggressive and seemingly terrible, just like unconstitutional is the word I was reaching for, actions of immigration enforcement. But one of the things I hear is that this is not our fight, or that folks don't really quite know how to put it in the context of a broader movement. What would you say to that?
The fight for migrant justice is always tied with the fight for racial justice. It is the rights of migrants, the rights of asylum seekers, impacts the rights of all of us. They not only because they're part of our communities, but you've seen this as demonstrated in this administration. They start to not be able to tell folks apart, those who have status, those who don't have status, the reasons that people come here. And so it is fundamentally a part of this broader movement for justice in this country.
And when we talk about, Black immigration, I mean, it seems like we need a systemic fix, but in this immediate moment, what can people do? How can activists, concerned citizens make a difference in this issue?
Definitely stay informed. It's relentless, the Trump administration's pursuit of migrants. And when we stop caring is when it becomes most harmful and we stop looking at it. I would encourage folks to support their local immigrant rights organizations, donate to bond funds and bail funds, or volunteer their language skills if they have it. There's so much work that needs to be done to support each individual in this awful system for them to be able to overcome these obstacles, and we can only do it as a collective.
This may seem like circling back to what we were talking about a couple minutes ago, but it keeps hitting me. How is it legal to fire a judge who makes a decision that you don't like? That seems like it would completely undermine the entire system. Like, oh, you ruled against me, you're fired. Like, this is not The Apprentice. I'm not sure, how is that legal?
Yeah, it's definitely it's been brought up as a huge issue. The problem is that many of the administration's choices are not legal, but challenging the legality of that. Although many organizations like our own litigation team are doing it, it takes time, and in that time, unfortunately, there's a real human impact and real human price that is to be paid. I think specifically some of these judges are oftentimes on a probation period for their first 2 years. And so they look at their decision and they use that to say that they don't get to continue past their probationary period. But there's definitely choices that are made that we can clearly see as immigrant advocates that are not legal, but the administration has been able to use the time that it takes to challenge that to get rid of as many people as they can.
Wow, that's nasty work. Attorney Narayanan is our guest, and we will continue the conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
58 years ago, a bullet tried to silence a dream. It couldn't. On April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was taken from us, not because he failed, but because he was winning the fight for a nation determined to live up to its promise. That fight didn't end then, and it can't end now. California is the most powerful state and the most powerful country on earth. But right now, too many people are being left behind, priced out of their homes, locked out of opportunity, told to wait for justice that's already long overdue. Dr. King didn't wait. He taught us the fierce urgency of now and acted. Now it's up to us to carry that same urgency today. We need leaders who will fight the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. Not someday, now. On this anniversary, let's honor Dr. King the only way that truly counts, by doing the work. Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
For the first time ever, the Action Altadena Build Together Fair and Altadena Rebuild Trade Show are coming together. If you were impacted by the Eaton Canyon fire and you're still asking, where do I start? This is for you. Join James Farr, host of KBLA Talk 1580's Conversation Live, Altadena Rising, Sunday, April 19th from 12 to 4 p.m. at the Collaboratory in Altadena. Get connected to the resources, experts, and support you need all in one place. Plus music, food, games, and prize drawings for the whole family. For more information, visit Eventbrite Altadena Rebuild Trade Show, because rebuilding starts together.
From station to stage, LA Metro connects you to the artistic heart of Los Angeles. Celebrate this National Arts Month with Metro, exploring galleries, theaters, and cultural spaces across the city. Art isn't just where you end up, it's how you get there.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
I can't believe how spotless my floors look after using the Swiffer Power Mop. No more dragging around a heavy mop and messy bucket. Now I get the same deep clean without all the work. Thanks to the powerful solution and scrubbing pad of the Swiffer Power Mop, dirt and grime don't stand a chance, and I don't break a sweat. Mic drop. Mop drop.
Swiffer Power Mop. Swiffer Power Mop.
A smarter way to mop. Try it or your money back.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
It is indeed honored to be in conversation with attorney Mahdavi Narayanan of Human Rights First. And still have a million questions, but we'll squeeze in a couple here before we run out of time. What do you think? What are we missing? I'm particularly asking this question in connection with Black Americans, African American activists, and concerned citizens who are watching what is unfolding with Black migrants in this country.
I think something important to note and keep in mind is that what we've seen over the past year, more than a year now, it isn't just tougher enforcement, it's a shift towards denying protection altogether. And so as the Black community looks at what we can do to support folks, it's important to keep in mind that there's so many Black migrants who are here seeking this protection to exercise their right to asylum. And the system right now and this increased enforcement is making that close to impossible. And so it's so important to keep our representatives accountable, to try to muster the political will to increase the access to this protection once again.
Yeah. Here's a question that I sort of slightly referenced in the beginning. I didn't know if we'd have time. When I see the rounding up of people right now by ICE in this country, I wonder if it's really about deportation, because when I look at deportation numbers, although we see terrible things like people being sent to countries they have no tie with, that they've never been to, but the numbers aren't really higher than the deportation numbers under Biden or under Obama. So the question then becomes, is the end game really about filling up these detention centers, which are profit centers for some sectors, let me put it that way, and which, in some cases even we are hearing reports of forced labor. So I guess, I'm not asking you to speculate, but what I'm asking you to do is, what is the patterns that you're seeing telling you about deportation versus, endless detention or long drawn out detention and the exploitation of the folks that are detained inside these private prisons?
I think deportation is definitely a goal, but there can be diplomatic or other logistical issues in making that happen that isn't always fully in the control of DHS. But on the other side, there's also definitely an aspect of making an example of folks who are in detention. And what I've seen is immigration detention being used as a punitive measure, not only to compel folks to self-deport, but also to try to deter folks from either entering or staying here longer term or pursuing applications like an asylum application that they might otherwise be eligible for. And so exactly as you're saying, in these horrific facilities, massive expansions of them without adequate access to medical assistance, as well as just separation, isolation, being in there for a long time. And so when you get arrested, you think about, well, this person that I knew was in here for a year. I can't last that long. Maybe I just go back and then I find a different way to get somewhere else, which oftentimes, unfortunately, is more dangerous. I've had folks from Africa tell me that, well, just send me home. I'm tired. I'll try to get on a boat and go somewhere else. And it's just really sad to see.
Starting to hear more reports of sexual abuse, particularly of minors inside of these ICE detentions. Are you getting any reports of that?
Unfortunately, yes. I do have clients who have gone through incidents of sexual abuse, and we do our best to try to flag that. And unfortunately, what I've seen is the investigation into those the internal investigations are often insufficient.
Are we becoming desensitized? Are we normalizing this kind of human rights violation in a mass level?
I hope not, Dominique. And I think it's important work that you're doing and your listeners are doing to stay informed, because the more we talk about it and the more we think about what these community members are going through, I think we keep reminding ourselves of how atrocious it is, because the goal is to remove them from our cities, to take them to these remote areas, to try to act like this is normal. But as you shed more and more light to it and we keep talking about it, I think that's the best way that we can fight this normalization.
This is not normal. Attorney Mahdavi Narayanan, thank you so much for being with me this morning.
Thank you.
Right, the phone lines are wide open if you want to process anything you've heard, or we got a lot to talk about. Let's look at what's happening in Washington. All that straight ahead on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. President Trump is promoting his no tax on tips law by having McDonald's delivered to the Oval Office. The law impacts federal income taxes for people working in jobs that are traditionally receive tips. It allows some workers to deduct certain amounts of qualified tips per year from 2025 through 2028.
The no tax on tips is something special, right?
It's very special.
And that's the one that really pertains to you more than anything else?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Fantastic.
Georgia TSA workers don't have to worry about losing their utilities at home while the partial government shutdown continues. The Georgia Public Service Commission approved an order that prevents employees from having their utility services disconnected despite any non-payment. And Michigan marijuana sales rose sharply in March, topping $255 million for the month. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
If you need to lose 50 pounds or more and diets haven't worked, you're not alone. West